In their synagogue, the gospel says, was a man with an unclean spirit. Really makes you wonder about the person sitting next to you, doesn't it? This man was there filled with an unclean spirit, and who knows how long he had been coming, how long he had been possessed. But we get an insight here, which I think is important for us, into the work of the devil. Because the unclean spirit doesn't prevent this man from going to the synagogue. It shows you how sneaky the devil is. Because for this man not to show up to synagogue might arouse some suspicion that something was wrong. It would be too obvious, and people might start asking questions or taking a little too much interest. Better for this unclean spirit to have the man show up and just go through the motions. That way no one will notice the fact that on the inside this man is being tormented. This is how the devil works. This, in fact, is the strategy that C.S. Lewis lays out in his book, The Screwtape Letters. It's a great read. Just don't read it before you go to bed at night. And I'm sure I've mentioned this story before. It's a fictional story of a demon, Screwtape, who's writing to his nephew, Wormwood, who is beginning his work as a demon and leading souls to the devil. And in one letter, Screwtape tells his nephew, Wormwood, that it's good that his client, the one he's leading to hell, that his client is still going to church. And he says, because as long as he maintains the external habits of a Christian, he can still be made to think of himself as someone who's made some new friends, someone who's part of a community, but whose spiritual life remains much the same. The idea, argues Screwtape, is to find the balance between showing enough external things of the faith, but not being moved on the inside. And so the demons give us enough of an opportunity to present ourselves before God, but distract us from making enough actual progress. This is the work of an unclean spirit. It doesn't keep us from being in the presence of God, but it keeps us from being changed by Him. We said it repeatedly in our responsorial psalm today. If today you hear His voice, harden not your hearts. This is precisely what the devil is trying to do, to harden our hearts. You know, it's quite possible right now that you're hearing words coming out of my mouth, but you're not really paying attention to what I'm saying. Maybe right now you're being distracted by another thought, by the thoughts of all the things that you have to do at some point today, or by the person who's sitting in front of you. And if you weren't distracted before, maybe now you're distracted now that I've mentioned it. But pay attention. The devil will use anything, preferably small things, so that we don't think anything of it and try to defend ourselves. You know, when I sat down to write this homily, I was sitting in my chair and it kind of rocks a little bit. And I hardly ever get the hiccups. It's been years since I've had the hiccups. I sat down to type this homily, and when I got to the part about the devil using everything, I started hiccuping. And every 10th word, I'm not kidding, like my chair was like rocking. Now maybe I just had the hiccups. Maybe. The devil will use anything to distract us. He may not stop you from coming across people in need, but he will put enough thoughts in your head to judge that person instead of caring for them. The devil may not stop you from entering a place of prayer, but believe me, he's going to follow you in. The devil may not put up physical barriers to us serving others, but he will certainly foster the greed in our hearts to make us focus only on ourselves. Friends, the devil may be bold, but he is not stupid. He much prefers to work in secret. He targets our motivation, our desire, and taps into our discouragement in order to keep us from acting and really engaging with God. But he doesn't want us to know that he's doing it. In fact, he would prefer that we doubt his existence altogether and never think of him. Before he was named Pope, Pope Francis wrote, "I believe that the devil exists, and his greatest achievement in these times has been to make us believe that he doesn't exist." Friends, he exists, and he attacks us subtly so that we don't notice. The less we pay attention to the small things in our lives, like our motivation and our sense of hope, the more likely the devil is to succeed in hardening our hearts. But look at what happens in our gospel. Look at what draws this demon to come crying out of this man, because it teaches us how we can defend ourselves. Jesus is teaching in this synagogue with authority, not like the scribes and Pharisees, but with authority. And it's his authority, his certainty of who he is, and his belonging to the Father that drives this demon out. And friends, we battle unclean spirits by reminding ourselves of who we are and what is true. Reminding ourselves that we belong to God, that we are the beloved sons and daughters of God. We're not what the world tells us we are, but our firm identity is rooted in the person of Jesus. That Christ has died for us and that he's risen from the dead. It's a fact that we have to cling to. That what we do here is true worship that unites us with our loving God. These are the things that the devil attacks, because these are the things that he wants us to forget. Because these are the things that, in the end, defeat him, that show his ultimate powerlessness over us. Friends, we have to claim our authority in Christ. We belong to him, and he is the source of our strength. And so let's look closely at our lives so that we can recognize where there is discouragement, where there is distraction, where we lack motivation in our lives. Look for those places, because those are the places where the devil is hard at work. And when we can discover where it is we are distracted, where we're pulled away, where we lack motivation, let's invite the Lord specifically into those places to drive out any unclean spirits that are living there. Those unclean spirits that are trying to harden our hearts to the tenderness and the mercy of God. I don't want to make any of us paranoid about the presence of the devil. We don't want to be walking around, terrified all the time, because that would be giving in to the terrorists of the devil. But we do have to pay attention, friends. We do have to be on guard, because he is working, and he is trying to pull us away. And so let's ask the Lord to be with us and to give us strength so that we can defend ourselves against the wiles and the snares of the devil.